Let's get into the second belt of our conversation, and it has to do with industrial actions here, there, everywhere. We've had a lot of them in this year alone, and of course, UTAG and CTAG, one of those we can reference. The Ghana Meteorological Agency also in there. We're going to discuss these in terms of how to mitigate these frequent industrial actions. What is government's role in all of these? How should government handle these issues when they crop up? You just heard Dr. Opuni Frimpong talking about the handling of such matters. What constitutes better conditions of service? I mean, are they being realistic? And we'll be speaking to Austin Game. He's a labor dispute resolution expert. He joins us with his take on these matters. Mr. Game, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. Right, so I see you unmuting. Can you speak up?
Good morning. How are you?
I am very well, Mr. Game. Thank you for joining us. Now, when you look at all of these industrial actions that we've seen back to back, what do you think is at the very epicenter of all of them? Why are we seeing so many
shifts? A shift in making a new law. That is the Labour Act since 2003. And unfortunately, we have not been able to have a paradigm shift ourselves as a people. The institutional bodies that are supposed to be training people, those who are supposed to be guiding people to respond to the change contained in the law, we failed to do that. Indeed, industrial relations is not something that just anybody can just jump into it.
Right.
Because managing people and related feelings is a thing. To where appropriate, all of us have become victims of the circumstance now. So we have to take a step backward and take the right step. That way we can overcome the challenges we have now. Otherwise, it will continue like this into perpetuity.
Are you saying you suspect that moving forward, we could, in 2022, for example, that if we've seen UTAG, we've seen CTAG, we've seen the Ghana Meteorological Agency already in this year, and we're just in February.
I'm not suspecting. It's real. It's something that can and will happen if we continue to behave the way we are behaving. Look, we can't hide. So please, the best way to do this is for all of us to become sober and recognize that we are many. We are all not the same. The fingers are not the same. So if you don't know, ask. Indeed, I don't know everything and nobody knows everything. If I'm pretending and feeling that everything we do is right and whatever I say is final, these are the consequences.
Are you suggesting that has been the reaction of, whether it is UTAG or any other entity, the employer, in terms of not acted above the board in dealing with these organizations, which justifies their embarking on these strikes? Because, mind you, we have COVID-19, as has been cited. We have harsh economic developments across the world. That must be considered, mustn't it?
In the world has not come to an end. If you are managing people and circumstance beyond your control, crops up, what do you do? That is why we are talking about managing people. There is one key word that appears to be missing in the lexicon of Ghana: inclusivity. Everybody is in what our law says. In fact, let me just maybe go a step backward for you. Look, the Constitution of Ghana is very clear under the directive principles of state policy, chapter 6 or so, Article 36, subsections 10 and 11, says that the state shall take steps to ensure that people's safety. State shall ensure that working people participate in decision making. It's on the basis of that, and also Article 24, it's on the basis of that the labor law was crafted. It wasn't crafted for academic purposes. If you have the feeling that whatever you do is final, the consequences is what you will see. You have to involve people in decision making. That's what the Constitution of Ghana says. And that's what was translated into the Labor Act. But employers, and let's forget about government. Government is an employer. Government does partisan politics. It's about human resource management. It's about ensuring that the relationship is well built. And that's why you employ other people to support you in delivering that mandate. So we cannot hide. And that's why in the law, we created space for National Labour Commission government. It's left in the care of the three bodies: employers, government, and labor, constituting the tripartite body, as the ILO itself is also constituted. That's how we made it. And therefore, if you select people onto the commission, the people are expected to be completely independent. You have no attachment to the people who even select you. Your only attachment is to keep advising them to ensure that they are in conformity with the law. Is just one of the subject matters anybody can just jump into and make mockery of it and go away. And that is the consequence. That's what you are seeing on your screen.
Right.
So clearly, we must change. There is a shift. There must be a shift. Otherwise, you will paralyze. And the paralysis is what you are seeing.
The paralysis is what we are seeing. Interesting perspective there. I was going to say the NLC, I mean, the different groupings that you say they should be above or live above politics, even in their work. But there are political appointments to the NLC. There are. How do you expect them to not act politically, or at least in the interest of the appointing party? What's your expectation, and is it realistic?
Well, the commissioners that we have to decide are selected by the bodies mentioned earlier.
Right.
Now, the executive secretary, allegedly, I understood, appointed by government.
Right.
Whichever way it is, if the commission is mindful of what they are supposed to do, the executive secretary cannot and shall not, even to be a member of the commission, is beyond just the roof here. It must be something solid. And so those who select the people themselves must also advise themselves in the future. For now, then they have themselves to blame. And I think he's a nice gentleman. People must realize that this is over 30 million people whose destinies are in their hands when you are appointed into any office.
Now that you've made mention of the commissioners, yes. Do you feel that maybe we should get to the point, we should take a second look at this whole bit about the executive secretary position at the NLC? And I'm not speaking specifically at this point in time to say that maybe moving forward, apart from the commissioners, the executive secretary as well must follow certain laid down rules and not be a political appointment, so to speak. Do you feel we've got to that point?
If the employer, the government of the day, selected somebody to be appointed, the person should still go to the Public Services Commission to be grilled through an interview, because this is you have to be skillful. You can be a special lawyer. You are not qualified to be there. You can be whoever you think you are. You are not supposed to ADR properly. You must be having the mind of resolving differences, not just waiting for conflict to come up to you. So it's not an office. Labor law is an applicable law. That's why it's not written in the traditional legalistic language. It's written because it's meant for two people can form a union, including Kaya can negotiate. So clearly, we have missed the way, and unless we take a step backward and ensure that we take the right now, get people with the same mindset seated and have a conversation around what have we been doing well? How can we do it better and proceed from there? I'm not interested in appreciate the fact that we have a Labor Act coupled with the ADR Act, the LIs that have been passed. We must couple it together and have people who have the capacity to implement them.
Right.
So that we don't take swallowers.
You speak of the fact that there are too many of these incidents. Before we start getting to maybe the meat of the matter, what government can do to forestall some of what you have projected, that real actions we have seen. We had UTAG and CTAG. CTAG at a point came out, there were some directives and accommodation from the employer, and they broke off and said, we're no longer on strike. But UTAG has been on strike up till in the modus operandi so far of the NLC. That is what they say. When push comes to shove, you go to court, we are directed to go back to the classrooms, and that is it. This time they have said, for various reasons, hoping for some sort of response to their resolution on the 5th of this month, sent to the Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Ursula Owusu-Ekufo. They did not get that, and as of the 18th, they are also on strike. When you look at these two bodies, UTAG, and fair for them to be embarking on these actions at this point in time, or I mean, what is your reading of those two actions? Are they being too hard on government?
Either on strike or expressing some concern, say that the strike has been suspended. That is even worse. It's only suspended, so it's not over.
Right.
So when it triggers, then something else will have to be given. So, two, the way and manner the bodies that are charged to handle the UTAG matter to the court itself, that's just no good. That's one. Because industrial relations is not supposed to be played in the law courts. The judge did exceptionally well by not initially the first two sittings, not determined. That was quite good. He urged them on to go and negotiate. The only small snag there is asking them to go and meet with. See, it's not a part of the issue. UTAG has a problem with their employer. And I want to say this. Employers must learn to have time and analysis before it metamorphosed into becoming a full-blown conflict like the way we are seeing the UTAG one now. But there is a huge world of a difference between having differences, some form of and the consequence is what we are seeing now. And it is not one-sided, it's both parties. They must be willing, and the law is very clear. If you go to Labor Commission and you think that you are not mediators, the law is very clear, including the ADR Act, makes room for either private institutional help or individual that you identify that you want to invite to first. None of them, the employer and the union, they did not take advantage of any of the opportunities open to them. And the choice they have made is to suffer. And the suffering is what we are all going through.
But in terms of the processes to as a ruling, UTAG must comply. But it appears in this instance, they are refusing to comply. I mean, is that not intransigence on the part of UTAG? How do you respond?
Yes, I appreciate it should be responded to positively. But these are the consequences of industrial conflict. There can be intransigence, if you want to call it so. Prison, you worsen the matter. It means forever and ever, and you'll be forced to release them anyway. And so to avoid all these things, that's why we created space for a National Labour Commission to be impartially active and ensure that these matters are resolved within some hours. It can be done. It can be done. I repeat, it can be done. And I'm very happy to resolve their matters. I'm sick and tired of it. And I think the earlier we change our attitude, the better for all of us.
Right. Just hold for me, agency, because the acting director of forecasting and synoptic meteorology, Joseph Potofi, had this to share in recent times. I just want you to, watch that.
By the close of day, something fruitful will come out of it, because the union put certain things, and if those demands, some of them can be met, some of them maybe from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday going. The data is to observe duration, solar radiation, incoming radiation, soil temperature, and almost all the weather parameters that you can think of. We need to observe it, and the observer or the technician, it is mandatory on us to observe the weather and then report the weather every 3 hours throughout the country. So every 3 hourly, there is what we call synoptic data that we observed, we record, and then we push. It is very dire consequence. In certain places, certain airlines cannot even come, because when you come currently, you are doing so at your own risk. Our men are not providing that service. Wherever they are getting the service from, we don't know, but wait.
And that was an acting director of forecasting and synoptic meteorology, Joseph Potofi, sharing his thoughts there on this entire action and, of course, the relevance of this matter. We do know that as far as the GMET is concerned, it also has to do with their conditions of service. In fact, in a statement that has been put out, the Public Services Workers Union, having presented a resolution to the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization on the 5th without a response, we're going to embark on this action on the 18th of February, which we see now, Mr. Gami. So in respect of moving forward, it also affects flights, coming into the country and leaving the country and all of that. And that another big issue. What do you see in there, in their specific case?
Well, I'm changing, and I was a little scared because we don't have any information. So it's not only about airlines, it's about your safety in the studio there.
Right.
And so we should not take them for granted. The point is that yes, it's supposed to be concluded within 72 hours. That is the law. And that should be the practice. And you see, inclusivity, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a figure of speech. It's of living and involving people. The law enjoins us to share relevant information. And we put that there because the Constitution, as I mentioned to you earlier, demands that we must take steps in everything we do. And people think that they can do whatever they like. These are the consequences. Look, you can be a minister of state. I've been a minister before. You can be managing labor-related matters. Ask the vice chancellors. We meet regularly. I don't wait for them to take strike before we meet. I meet with various unions regularly. They can testify. We have problems. Some people may mismanage something for fire to be quenched. People must learn. There's nothing like reactive or to react to a matter in the labor law. It is proactivity that is in the GMET matter. They should not go and sit down behind closed doors, argue and debate, and somebody is a winner and somebody is a loser. They should have a simple conversation about these issues. That which they can meet, let them meet it. That which they can't meet, they should openly difficulties. But I think that we should share the burden together and find a way of resolving these differences as quickly as possible under the canopy of proactivity and not reacting to an issue. If people threaten or give you space that, look, if we don't get this, we'll do this. And you want to, we have to place things where they are to be placed. And having mentioned Labour Commission again, I think it's important that when such things, you smell it. You don't wait till the time is due, and then you are inviting.
Right. So we tend to be reactionary, but after having spoken about all of these, it still remains. How do we resolve these issues and actions? What is government's role and what should it be doing? What do you think it should be doing at around this time to even prevent the incidence of same moving forward?
Government as employer is as vulnerable as any other employer.
Right.
They have there's not, and explain and be honest with them, because if they know that you are not being honest and truthful in sharing the information you are sharing with them, they will not want any problem. Be honest, open, because the law enjoins employers to have an open channels of communication with their own people. Section 9 of the Labour Act, Section G says so. But if you go to cabinet and you are discussing your matters, that's your matter. If you go and read out a statement somewhere, you have read your statement, that is your power. But when it comes to labor relations, you are equally it of the Labour Act. If you can't do that, learn it. Open up. We all don't know the same thing. We are not on the same scale. Let's open up, be sober, and inquire and get knowledge. The Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is another entity that must learn to be impartial and must learn to serve as a technical advisor to the employer. They represent, at certain point in time, the employer at table in proper language and not taking side, even if the employer, your principal employer, because the officers of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission are also employed. Fees to the employer, your principal. And therefore, you are not supposed, if they are in some breach of the rules that govern the procedure of anything you do, this one can't go this way. This will be the consequence if we do it this way. And so therefore, that is the role of fair wages and salaries. That's why they are called even Fair Wages and Salaries Commission.
And on the back of the point you make, when you look at some of their ritual, do you feel at some point they have lost it?
Well, the young man who is in charge of the Fair Wages is new there, but he has tremendous understanding, and if he can help by way of advising about relations, that ministry is supposed to be a technical advisor to all other ministries, including the presidency. In fact, that is, to me, the ministry of ministries. And therefore, if you are there, even though you are in political office, you serve as a technical advisor and guide the presidency, guide all other ministries so that they do not create trouble for you to be resolving. It's a very specialized ministry.
Again, it has to do with, everyone is talking about better conditions of service. What, technically speaking, forms better conditions of service? I mean, UTAG has said it, GMAT has brought it up, CTAG has brought it up. Generally, what would go into that?
To negotiate under Section 97, you are to make every reasonable effort to reach agreement. For the condition to be seen to be acceptable to both parties, that's what I mentioned earlier about inclusivity, you have to share that service to be written voluntarily by the two of you without any coercion, and that which you have concluded is not reversible unless the two of you agree to reverse it. Therefore, under the law, under Section 1054, unless the two of you agree to reverse it. So that is a condition of service that will be implementable. That's why you must share relevant information about your finances, about your materials, about what you want to put for them to put in as working people. That is giving them the KPIs to fulfill and ensure that people are productive and ensure that discipline is in place so that imposed by one side, then it is not an acceptable written condition of service.
Right. Well, Austin Gami, thank you for sharing all these labor pearls of wisdom with us this morning. We are immensely grateful for your time, and we'll be calling on you sometime soon. Hopefully not, because hopefully there will not be any more actions. But thank you so much, Mr. Gami, for joining the conversation.
I'm most grateful. God bless.
Right. Mr. Gami, of course, a labor dispute resolution expert. Years. Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. Now, a young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. In Accra and Tema, you enjoy 15%. In other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, it stands at 12.5%. Outside other regional capitals, you enjoy 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, you enjoy 5%. If you want clarity, further clarity and information, go to your nearest GRA office. Ghana Revenue Authority, integrity, fairness, and service. And on that note, we call it a show this morning on the AM show. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's do this again tomorrow. But of course, we have more coming your way at 10 and at noon with our bulletins. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Have a good day.